Welcome to the Irish NFL show and to our instant reaction podcast to the Rams' victory over the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field in the NFC divisional round game last night. The Rams now advance to play the Seahawks at Lumen Field to decide who will be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. And Brian, it wasn't necessarily the shootout that was promised, but it was absolutely the dramatic thrills and spills, cardiac Bears, cardiac Caleb, Rams with the grit affair that you always hoped that it would be. From a neutral's perspective, very tough for the two fan bases involved, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the Rams came out for the other side, and they did what you expect a team that has championship caliber and championship DNA to do.
Yeah, Conor, it kind of played up to the manner in which we spoke about on Thursday night, which is it would be nip and tuck, very tight game over the course of the four quarters. It wasn't necessarily, we didn't get the feel it was going to be that type of game where either team were going to be scrambling to, pull back a double-digit deficit. Defense is very impressed with the Bears' defense. For all the questions they've had over the course of the last month, to shut down that Rams offense for the bones of three quarters. It's one that the Bears will look back and, upon they reflect over time and say it's one that got away because just the nature of how the game evolved. But then again, as you say, the Iceman comes up with a miraculous play at the end. It looked like the Rams had that game sewn up, and obviously that huge fourth down touchdown at the end. Overall, I felt the Rams just about deserved it. I think that experience of McVay being in coaching situations, at the drive at the end, even put themselves in a position to win the game in overtime. Bearing in mind, it looked like the Bears were on the cusp potentially of kicking their own field goal to win the game, just to get the ball back and the pressure again to go and deliver that drive. And it was just the cunningness of some of the play calls in that particular drive by McVay, just knowing exactly what they needed to do methodically to move the ball, into those fourth downs. And that's where I felt the Bears kind of got away from it. We might get into that, is the fact that the Bears are 15 yards away from a field goal position, and they went for the big play to try and close out the game. And in hindsight, should have been a bit more methodical in terms of just trying to get themselves in position to at least have that game kicking opportunity to win the game.
I think there's an element of hindsight bias, and I know where you're coming from, but I would be a firm believer that you live by the sword, you die by the sword. The Bears aren't in that position if they're not able to hunt for the big plays and get the big plays. That's what's gotten them there. So you don't get away from, you dance with the one that brung you, right? And you're in with the Caleb Williams experience for good and for bad. The good is that you get, as somebody described it, the longest 14-yard touchdown pass in history. I mean, and you heard Mike Tirico saying it in commentary, I do not believe this team. Like, how do you even, off the back foot, like running for his life, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a sack. He's going to lose 30 yards and it's game over right there. He just heaves it up in the air. To have the arm strength and the athleticism to get that in the end zone in any place where Cole Kmet is in a position to make a play on it, it's just something that you don't see. It's such a special throw. So why wouldn't he think he can make that throw? And why wouldn't Ben Johnson want to put him in position to try and do something special? It's not just 15 yards for the field goal. It's 15 yards for a field goal opportunity. A makeable field goal is probably another 10 or 15 yards beyond that in those conditions. Even though Cairo Santos has had a great playoffs, he's kicked really well in both this game last night and in the game against the Packers. So you trust him, but you don't want to have to trust him from 50 yards if you can avoid it. I think that's part of the equation here. The other thing, and it's where I give both teams huge credit, as you say, like, this is playoff football. And we spoke about it in the context of the Patriots game when we were watching Patriots-Texans last night. And Shane was marveling at how his Patriots have stepped it up defensively. And I was saying, but that's what good teams do. Well-coached teams improve over the course of the season. What you saw in week 17, week 18 is not what you're seeing in the playoffs, because they're working on it. They work on their weaknesses. And that's what the Bears have been doing as well. Other part of that, I think, crucially for me, in what you saw the Bears do defensively, is for the first time all season, they have Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, all healthy at the same time. And guys like Tariq Stevenson, who was the villain last season for getting caught on that Washington Commanders Hail Mary, a man transformed who was making plays yesterday, like the Bears and Dennis Allen dialing up plays that Stafford didn't expect to see. Stafford was rattled. He's getting hit by safety blitz. He's getting hit by cornerback blitzes. They're springing players free. They're doing what the Bears haven't done all season, which is create a pass rush. They had to do it creatively because they don't have the horses up front, apart from Montez Sweat, to get that done. And one thing we didn't see the Bears do, of course, was get turnovers. And that really is the winning and losing of the game. That and the Rams' ability to stiffen up 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 opportunities. How many times did they stone the Bears? Turn the ball over on downs twice. I think in that that context, you saw one of the things that the Bears had to grapple with here is they had to kick Joe Tooney out to left tackle to cope with the loss of Ozzie Trapillo. They moved then Jordan McFadden in to left guard, a position. He's only played 3 snaps over the last 18 months. So they had to, as Chris Collinsworth was saying in commentary again, run the ball right a lot, lean on that right side of the line, lean on Darnell Wright, and eventually that just got predictable. I think Ben Johnson was finding it difficult to get those kind of short yardage gains. Like, it's not that they didn't run the ball well, and because Ben Johnson is so good at misdirection, I think that's the hallmark, like Sean McVay, of his offense, showing you the same look, but then giving you something completely different. They always looked like they could, and he's got to trust his guys to go and pick up the yardage, but the Rams time and time again just made big defensive plays. You wouldn't have expected to be saying after this game, as we are doing, the Bears defense kept them in it, and the Rams defense is the reason that they were in a position to go and win the game. But as insane as that touchdown pass to Cole Kmet was to get the Bears to overtime, when they get the ball back, when they force the Rams to punt, and when they throw the interception, I mean, you just don't give Matthew Stafford 2 bites of the cherry. I looked at that and I thought, there's no way he doesn't get it done this time. That's why he's there. I'd be very interested to see what the Bears are going to be like next season, and that's still a long way off now, but will they be able to build on this, and will they, I would suspect they probably do have something sustainable that they can build from, because you don't want it to be, no disrespect, but a Brian Daboll type situation where a head coach comes in, wins a playoff game, puts you in a position ahead of schedule that you didn't think you would be in, and then that turns out to be the peak. Or like the Commanders last season, it's a miraculous season with a whole bunch of 1-score victories, and you run it all the way right into the playoffs, and then you have a really disappointing season the next season. But this should be and is all about the Rams and the things that the Rams got right. And what they got right was that you're going into overtime and you're thinking, a lot of other teams, I think that's a gut punch. Giving up that touchdown on a 4th and 4 with a heave like that from Caleb Williams, you're going, oh, we're done now. Especially then when, the other factor here is they lose the toss and the Bears kick to them. So the Bears know what they're going to do, and they know what they're going to have to chase, and then they get the ball back. I think lesser teams fold in that situation, and they just go, it's not our day. And we've seen it time and time again. We saw it from the Packers, arguably, in the wild card, when the Bears got momentum, the Packers just couldn't slow it, and they seemed to behave like a team that knew it was beaten, a team that knew it was going to lose. That's not what the Rams are. The Rams are a team, as I said, that have Super Bowl DNA, championship DNA. They know what it takes to go all the way through, and they know that you're going to have to pull yourself through these tight spots, and you got to flush bad plays and just keep rolling, and that's what they did.
Yeah, we spoke about wrestling the momentum on Saturday night between the Bills and the Broncos, how time and time again, and it was back and forth. And in that situation, as you said, you give up that big touchdown at the end. You're literally one play away from essentially bringing yourself to the NFC Championship game. You go into overtime. Teams don't go for you initially in overtime. It looks like the Bears are driving, and you find a big play to get yourself back in a position to win. But you touched on there, this is battle-tested team. You're talking about up the front 7 and the Bears getting the Matthew Stafford, not just doing enough and having to utilise your safety in the box to come up after Matthew Stafford to try get those turnover plays. Those stops, that's similarities to what we saw in that divisional round last year, and it didn't go for the Rams last year. They were very unfortunate against the Eagles, but it has similarities in terms of the weather seemed very similar, the coldness, the players up front doing all the big plays defensively to put themselves in that position. But this is an evolution of a team that has come back after last year, when we all suggested they were probably the best team to beat the Eagles and knock the Eagles off their perch. And they've done that this season. They've had a lull. And then Seahawks have taken over essentially. But here we are now in an NFC Championship game next week for all the marbles. And it's the NFC West clash again. 3rd time. We're only 4 or 5 weeks removed from they played on that Thursday night. And arguably it was the best game of the season. I think we're in for a brilliant game next weekend. And people who have been waxing lyrical about the Seahawks inside, and rightly so, because it was a comprehensive victory, the manner in which they put down on the 49ers both this week and 2 weeks ago. But now they're going up against a team they're very evenly matched against. It's going to be a compelling affair next week.
Yeah. I agree. This is totally different. I think probably our hopes for this one are so high as well, because let's face it, with the best will in the world, the AFC Championship game is now a big disappointment. Not seeing Bo Nix, regardless of how well Jarrett Stidham plays at quarterback for the Broncos, and you don't wish him anything other than a good game, but it takes a lot of the air out of the expectation from that one, because the Broncos are not going to have their best team available. They're going to have their most important player sitting at home watching it, unfortunately for them. So it's really all on this NFC Championship game to show us what we want over Championship weekend. And as you say, it couldn't be better poised. 2 absolute heavyweights peaking at just the right time. I thought it was interesting just before we wrap to see the big embrace that Ben Johnson gave the Rams defensive coordinator, Chris Shula, after the game. You know, Johnson had a very cursory handshake with Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, after the wild card victory, and we've seen the back and forth between the two of them, and we saw and Sean McVay at his press conference sort of giving a little smile and a clever answer, which suggested he was very much looking to take Ben Johnson down to get one back for his friend Matt LaFleur. But you could see the respect between Johnson and Shula, and I think rightly so. That's why Chris Shula is getting head coaching interviews, and a lot of the flowers for last night belong to him for what he was able to do to that high-powered Bears offense away from home in the most horrific conditions.
Yeah, a coach, I guess, over the last 2 weeks that has been suggested in numerous positions, but it's unsure whether he actually is going to get that opportunity. I think the Rams will be obviously doing their utmost to keep hold of him, because we speak all the time about Stafford and Corey Williams and Devontae Adams and Puka, but at the same time, like, this team collaboratively as a group, we speak time. There's certain games during the season where you look back and you reflect on where did we win that game, and it was our defense, and Shula's done a fantastic job. Be interesting. The big question obviously is, can they keep holding? But he's got a big week ahead to prepare for that Seahawks game. It's going to be a huge game.
He sure does. I think we saw in Pat's Texans, defense doesn't win you championships, but defense keeps you in the championship and sets up the opportunity for your offense, particularly when it's led by a guy like Matthew Stafford to win. That's what the Rams did. That's why they're playing the Seahawks in a week's time. As Brian was saying, a great game to look forward to. We'll have all the coverage around it here on the Irish NFL Show.